We're live, Your Worship.
Thank you. Good afternoon. We'll call this meeting to order. I'll ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest. If at some point throughout the meeting you find that you do, please declare it at that time. Adoption of minutes, our regular meeting of council minutes, September 28th, 2021. If I could have a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Kinney and Councillor Foster. Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held September 28th, 2021 are hereby adopted as circulated. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Special meeting of council minutes, October 7th, 2021. A mover and seconder, please. Councillor Kinney and Councillor Belanger. Resolved that the minutes of the special meeting of council held October 7th, 2021 are hereby adopted as circulated. Any discussion on those items? All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Deputations, presentations, petitions, and public meetings. We have a few today. Our first is from Mr. Bob Hawken and Miss Cindy Cleary regarding street flooding on Maryland Avenue South, Robert Street, and Beechwood Road. So Dina, if you can let them in, that would be great.
Sure.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, we'll pass it over to you now and you can start your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Your Worship, Mayor Capolci and council members, my name is Robert Hawken. I'm here today with Mrs. Cindy Cleary. We're both residents of Maryland Avenue South in Wasaga Beach. Cindy has been a resident for over 30 years on this street. I've lived here since 2017. We are making the submission on behalf of 50 of our neighbors on Maryland Avenue South, George Street, Robert Street, and Beechwood Road. We appreciate the opportunity to present to you today. We have been impacted for over 10 years by flooding in our area and are seeking council's assistance in getting the issues addressed as a matter of priority. I'm hoping for proper drainage under Beechwood Road at Maryland Avenue South with deeper culverts and road resurfacing would be hopefully included in your upcoming budget. The actions taken to date by government officials have been very passive. Each homeowner signed this petition as they have been upset by the lack of action from our town. By the way, 100% of all the people I visited gladly signed their names on this petition, which has been filed with the town of Wasaga Beach on October 1st. The same contents were hand-delivered to our MPP, the Honorable Mr. Jim Wilson's constituent office in Collingwood on that same day. No word has been received from him to date, nor have any correspondences been received from the senior MTO staffers. Those names were provided to me by Mr. Kevin Lalonde of Public Works. The repeated flooding in our area poses threats to people, property, and the environment. We have sustained 4 floods in as little as 20 months. January 11th, 2020, March 11th, 2021, June 27th of this year, and more recently September 23rd, and still some more flooding as of yesterday. I've made numerous requests over the last 3 years with public works officials in the town of Wasaga Beach. The town has taken little action to address either the urgent impacts of the flooding or the sustained damage it has caused. This is why we are here today, as there's been no corrective action taken to address the road flooding other than passively referring the matter to the MTO. In spite of our efforts, the systemic flooding issue in our neighborhood results in basements being flooded multiple times a year, roads that are not passable because of water issues, driveways and that are underwater, garages and basements that are flooded, mold issues, property damage, and stagnant water that has nowhere to drain. The flooding has impacted hydro poles to rot out sooner and make it difficult to service Rogers and Bell pedestals that are on our street as the water goes above the underground cables. One of our neighbors has a disability and relies on his electric wheelchair to get around. The flooding on the road makes it impassable and dangerous for him. Also, the Canada Post mailboxes area get flooded, making it impossible for us to retrieve our mail when we want to. The flooding in houses and garages cause huge electrical and other health threats to residents, many of whom have young children. Drowning also is a possibility. The flooding and freezing issues during the winter and early spring poses risks from frozen water over the roads. With the ongoing and sustained impact, this is a hazard and a public health and safety issue. Ongoing flooding concerns should drive our planning department to take corrective measures to address the flooding problem before allowing for new development. The additional housing adds to the flooding burden. New residential construction increases the high water levels following rainfall. Homeowners need sump pumps to direct excessive water in our inefficient storm drains that further tax our outdated infrastructure. In order to give you a visual perspective of the area I'm discussing, I provided a map on the front page. Let me talk about the source of the problem. There's insufficient drainage from Beechwood Road, a provincial highway that impacts the town roads being Maryland Avenue, South, Robert Street, George Street, and Beechwood Road, which was formerly known as Highway 26. Flooding is caused by heavy or prolonged rainfall, snowmelt, or a combination of these two. Flooding also occurs when we receive high-intensity, short-duration rainfalls, often associated with severe thunderstorms. Ice jams with ice formation and an early spring breakup have also resulted in severe flooding in our neighborhood. We seem to be impacted by high water levels and high winds on Georgian Bay. In my particular case on Maryland Avenue, previous owners on Beechwood Road filled in a culvert behind their home, and I'm experiencing flooding throughout my backyard as well. See photos on page 25. I'm uncertain whether their actions were required to be done under permit, but the impact has been significant. Two of my neighbors, Cindy and Tom being one of them, have similarly experienced flooding in their backyard as well. The pictures on pages 2, 3, 4, and 5 clearly shows the severity of the flooding on Maryland Avenue South. Numerous emails and phone calls have been made to both your emergency hotline and your Public Works Department. I've attached a summary of my emails to date. See Appendix B from pages 13 to 17. I keep getting told that it is a provincial matter because Beechwood Road is a provincial highway and the town has referred it to the MTO road contractor. There's been no action to permanently fix this problem since I began contacting the town on January 11th, 2020. Information relayed to me by Mr. Kevin Lalonde said the MTO continues to sit on the matter as they haven't received many complaints. We need the town to move this matter forward to the province. The flooding from both the provincial road and the municipal roads are impacting our properties. The town has the right to expect the province to address drainage issues in order to preserve its property, mainly our roads. We wonder if the minimum standards of the province's highway drainage design standards are not being met, and if not, is this a concern for the town of Wasaga Beach? If there is a roads agreement in place with the MTO and our town in order, will they be in there to help resolve this problem? To date, I've been very disappointed, frustrated, as well as angry with the lack of action. Our present infrastructure is inadequate as we need better drainage under Beechwood Road at Maryland Avenue South to address the massive flooding problems we're experiencing. This problem will not go away. Cooperation, action, leadership, and urgency are required. We included in your documents is a picture of Maryland Avenue North showing a steep slope towards Georgian Bay to accommodate additional drainage under Beechwood Road on page 27 as a possible solution. I'm not an engineer, however, I just thought at least have that information at your disposal. As you can see, there are plenty of photos that I submitted for your perusal. Letters to the Honorable Greg Rickford, carbon copy the Honorable Carolyn Mulrooney, and Mr. Doug Heron, Director of Planning and Economic Initiatives, Wasaga Beach, and Mr. Mark Hartley from the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority are on pages 28 to 33. We have done our part. Now we invite you to help us and do your part. Here now is Mrs. Cindy Cleary to discuss her concerns. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Cindy Cleary. We've been on the street since 1986. We've always had a water issue. Thought maybe when they put the culvert on the north side of Bob's driveway that would get rid of some of the water, but it's just building up. People are building new homes here and they're pumping their sub water to our ditches. Ours goes in our backyard, but some people are putting it in front of their house, which is causing the street to be more water. So when we moved here in '86, there was 8 houses. 10 years ago, there was 11 houses. Now there's 31. So, and we weren't allowed at that time to pump water out to the road when we moved here. Ours goes to the backyard. So it's clogging up. It used to be between Bob's house and the next door neighbors, just a little flood to the ditch. Now it's a foot deep or more. It doesn't need to be concerned. The kids are going to school on the buses, and if one of those kids got caught in the ice because mom and dad couldn't be home at the time, it would be pretty serious. So I think that being here 36 going on 36 years is coming. Yeah. So I just believe that we should do something about it now before it gets worse. And there's a lot more kids on our street than there is now, too. So if I believe I'm right, there is approximately 15 or more kids on our street. So, but, definitely need to do something about the water. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both for your presentation. We do have a recommendation here to refer this back to staff. There has been a lot of discussion over the years between our staff and different government agencies about this issue. I'm happy to hear that you did also reach out to Jim Wilson and Carolyn Mulrooney and others, because it is going to take everyone being involved to get a resolution here. So council will receive it today. We will refer it back to staff, and they will bring the information back to us, and we'll make a decision at that point as to how we approach higher levels of government to get some answers on here. But I will open it up to any members of council if you have any questions of the presenters. Councillor Kinney.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to Bob and Cindy for coming today to confer a real concern. After reading the agenda, I took the opportunity to drive down your street, and yeah, there's some really low spots in several areas. I am the farthest thing there is from an engineer, but I did see some crushed culverts, ditches that could get cleared out. So yeah, I mean, thank you so much for bringing it towards us. And as the worship says, it's going back to staff to put a report in, and hopefully between us and the different levels of government, we can resolve your real issue down there. And thank you for your presentation, and it was well put together, Bob and Cindy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Blunt.
To that?
Sorry, go ahead.
I just like what doesn't make sense to me is new home developments have much bigger culverts, storm drains, than what I have out in front of my house. I'm the lowest on the whole street. So basically, one of the solutions I would think is having at least the same size storm drain as what we have further down the street, and obviously drainage underneath Maryland, under Beechwood going to Maryland Avenue North, perhaps on both sides would be ideal. But as I see it now, it's like you've got bigger storm drains at the top end of the street, and it doesn't make sense that the drain should be smaller where more water has to flow through it.
Okay, thank you. And again, we can't sit today and speculate or try to design something. That's why we need it to have it go back to staff, and they can bring all the information
Absolutely.
forward, because they have done research in this area, and they do have information that they can share with us. Councillor Belanger.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Yes, Mr. Hawkins, I'd like to thank you for the amount of work you've put into this and the detail that you've provided council. The only thing I would ask of council and staff, can we set an expectation as to when we will report back with 4 floods in under 20 months? I'm sure there's, on the part of the residents, a sense of urgency. So it would be nice if we could at least target a date as to when we could have something back in front of council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I would just ask our Public Works Director, hopefully at the next available meeting, he can have that ready for us. If he has to gather a bit more information, it might take a little bit longer, but I'm sure that he will get as fast as he can. Kevin, you're there. Can you give us a timeline?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Belanger. Certainly we can provide an update as it stands today at next committee meeting. We did meet with the MTO back in September and await their position, so we may not have all of the information from the MTO in terms of their stance on the issue, but they have been responsive in terms of understanding the circumstances that we see along Beechwood in that area. So ideally, it'd be nice to have a fulsome report with their position, and we've also have had interactions with the NVCA, who are also looking at flood zones in the area. So ideally, it'd be kind of a collaborative approach between the town, NVCA, and the MTO. However, at this point, I can certainly bring a status update, but I won't have the results from the MTO or the NVCA. We'll bring what we can, certainly.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you. Councillor Watson, I saw your card.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just curious. I noticed that a letter was sent to Mark Hartley of the NVCA on October 14th. Has there been any response from the NVCA?
Mr.
I
Huck?
have had no response to date from any MTO officials or the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority.
Okay, thank you. That's good knowledge for me to have. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Kevin?
Just a comment, Your Worship. I have had preliminary conversations with Mark Hartley via email on the subject matter. I think they're compiling some of the background information.
Okay, thank you. And again, that's why I don't really want to get into the weeds today, because I think that there is a lot of information that has to be pulled together, and then council will have it all in front of them at the same time, and then we can decide the course of action that we're going to take. So if I don't see any more cards. So thank you again, Mr. Hawken and Ms. Cleary, for your presentation and all the information. It was very well put together. And I will look for a mover and seconder for this motion. Councillor Foster and Deputy Mayor Bray. The council received the presentation and petition from Mr. Bob Hawken and Ms. Cindy Cleary pertaining to street flooding on Maryland Avenue South, Robert Street, and Beechwood Road for information, and further that this be referred back to staff. And I'll just confirm with our clerk that we do have a petition.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you. Yes, we did receive a petition on October 1st, and it includes signatures of 49 Wasaga Beach residents.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, all those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Again, thank you very much for your deputation today.
Thank you for having us.
Moving on to our next deputation is Mr. Ron Fedorowicz, and he will be in attendance to present to council concerns pertaining to his water pressure not performing to town capabilities. And Dina, oh, there he is. Good afternoon.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. We'll pass it over to you for your presentation.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity, Mayor and the council, for the opportunity to speak. And also want to thank Pam and Dina for helping me as well. My name's Ron Fedorowicz. I reside at 3 Fondell Crescent in Wasaga Beach. The reason for the deposition is my concerns with water pressure not performing at town capabilities. I don't know how much the councilors have read the emails. I've been dealing with Dina and Kevin, but just going back and forth of my concerns. But I'll give you a briefing anyway. I did early in October reach out to the city. I did try to contact the water department, but they didn't initially return my calls. So I actually followed up with the town council, and Pam actually called me back, which was nice of her. And she promised that she would have a gentleman or gentlemen's come out and take a look at my concern, because the issue is I have a house that was built in 2008, but actually, candidly, I only moved in last year. I basically bought it as a retirement house. I didn't rent it out. It just sat here, but I did maintain it and looked after it, obviously. But now that I'm retired, I've moved here about a year ago. So to me, it's typically a new house because it didn't get much use. But my concern is basically I noticed in late August, early September that something has changed dramatically within the performance of my water pressure. So basically prior to that, you could take a shower, or you could have multiple things running and there wouldn't be any concern. But I noticed in late August, early September that if the washing machine was running or something was running and you tried to have a shower, that all of a sudden you'd hear some popping and banging of the pipes, and the water coming out of the shower would be stuttering. You wouldn't get a constant flow. It would still flow, but in reality, it wouldn't flow what I would say to a normal capability. So it's just kind of inconvenient to sit there and wait and have something kind of wait for appliances to not be working for you to have a proper shower. So just to give you the background of that, but I did have two gentlemen that did show up, two nice gentlemen, and they did disclose. They didn't have an appointment. I was here anyway, but it's no issue. I was happy to see them. They came and said, they disclosed that they were on the street, and that my understanding of what they said was, we've tested, I believe they said 3 other houses on the street, and the street is performing at 70% or greater. That's our capability of what we try to perform at. And I said, okay, that's great. I said, and then they asked if they wanted to do the performance test on mine. So they went to the back and hooked it up to the hose, and they did 2 pressure tests. One came back at 55 pounds, which they were a little surprised. And then the gentleman took off like the aerator to do a second test, and it came in at 58 pounds. So they both concurred it was very low, and we chatted on the front lawn a bit, and then I asked if they wanted to come in to kind of exclude any issue with my internal pipes, and they said that's fine. They would come in. They were happy to come in. So we wore a mask. We did the COVID thing, which was fine. And they came in, they inspected my house inside, they looked at the pipes, they looked at the water meter, and they also concluded that the water pressure test that they did was actually a great test, because the engineering of my pipe is, when it comes in from the city, from the underground into the meter, it goes directly up, obviously, to the ceiling. But the first pipe that goes out before it comes internally into my house is the water tap. So it went to the water outside. So they know they had a clean test, but they still did some troubleshooting, and they concurred that, in their opinion, that it wasn't anything to do with my internal piping. So having said that, I appreciated them coming. And then a week later, I followed up to see, I did ask them what would be done. And they did say that they would do a report, and I asked them what would cause it. They said they weren't sure, but they said they would go to potentially the consulting engineer or somebody that, I don't know, they just didn't know the solution. So my follow-up was to see what was going on. I followed up with Pam, and then I got an email from Kevin, and I was a little bit disappointed with the email from Kevin, no disrespect intended, but he sent me a form, or not a form, but a document that just states the minimum requirements and that systems should be run at, and he's feeling, his opinion is that everything's fine at 55 or 58, nothing should be done. But I disagree with that, because his own staff basically said there was an issue, and they felt it wasn't. So there's a little bit of a contradiction between what his staff said to what Kevin didn't want to proceed. But I think Nina, she asked Kevin to maybe follow up and do another test, which is fine. But I did some research, and I did confirm, just to do some background on town capabilities. And, the 2 employees were correct that there is usually a performance goal of I checked with other municipalities, and, 70-80% is usually what they try to achieve, because it gives the functioning performance to satisfied homeowners to run multiple appliances. And that's the goal that they try to achieve at. And then some other feedback I got that they said that, you know, having a low pressure of 55 to 58 is not typical of a town water system. That's more in line with if you just had a well on your property and not actually hooked up to a city infrastructure. So having said that, I did more research, and I did notice in what I asked Kevin, and I sent an email earlier this week, is it'd be very helpful for the people of Wasaga that if there was a strategic master plan that was available that people could review, that would show performance measures, the capabilities of the system in place, you know, their transmission mains, you know, conveys the maximum daily demands, but it also shows how they meet the demands of what the pumping stations do to meet the requirements that everybody has a satisfactory pressure. So anyway, he did get back to me, Kevin did get back to me and said that there is some documents. I haven't had a chance to actually review it, but on the surface, it looks again like it's more of a water requirements and minimum standards as far as, you know, like I'm not arguing the quality of the water. I'm not arguing the, you know, other things that he's sending to me. I'm just asking for more or less what's the performance and how it should work. So I'm just a little frustrated. You know, he sent a further email saying he'd come out and do another test. You know, I asked him, why don't you do a test right at the meter, a pressure test right at the meter pre and post? So, because he was suggesting that maybe it was the meter, but then he's saying, well, if we do that, it's a $250 cost. But, you know, to me, you guys own the meter. It shouldn't be my cost. I'm not arguing with Kevin that the meter's faulty or not giving a proper reading of how much the capacity of the water. I think that's what he's thinking. But I'm thinking that the water meter is not reading properly. But he was suggesting in a prior email that maybe there's some obstruction, and he called it an old meter. So I don't know if you know, my only suggestion is he's contradicting me, thinking that, or in his staff thinking that it's my internal plumbing issue. But in reality, if he does it at the source, he'll be able to figure out 100% that, you know, it's not it's really a city problem if it's not performing properly. And all the people want is they want to know, you know, do we have a good system? We're paying all this money. We pay quite a lot of bit of money in reserves, but we pay, I think, $400 or $500 a year per household in just reserves. I had to pay almost like 11 years of reserves of $500 a year for not even using anything. So, you know, like the house sat empty here for 10 years. I did use it a little bit. I'm not saying, but, you know, I would use it more as a summer place and not really an all year round place. So I just, you know, obviously the ultimate goal is to get it fixed. I don't want to get it fixed at my cost, especially if the pressure is coming from the city. So that's all I'd like to say. Just I wanted to have council support, and you know, I'm not looking to battle Kevin. I'm sure Kevin's a nice gentleman, but you know, at the end of the day, if he was me and if his house wasn't performing up to code or what is acceptable or comfortable for the homeowner, he'd be upset too. So I thank you for your time, and that's all I have to say.
Okay, well, thank you very much for sharing that. I think, again, it's one of these ones, I think it would be better if we, the motion add at the, as a second paragraph, and further that it be referred back to staff. I think it's important that we have all the facts for this, the data and all of those things. Otherwise, it's really hard for council to just tell Kevin to go and fix it. We need to have all of that before us. So if council's okay with that, I would like to propose that it be that council receive the presentation from Mr. Ron Fedorowicz pertaining to water pressure concerns for information, and further that it be referred back to staff. If I could have a mover and seconder for that, Councillor Foster and Deputy Mayor Bray. And I see Deputy Mayor Bray, you wish to speak.
Thank you, Mayor Bifulci. Thank you, Ron, for your presentation and sharing your concerns. It is something we have heard before from different residents, depending on, I guess, where they are in the water system and what else is happening upstream and downstream. And I just wondered if Kevin's report could Also include other concerns that we may or may not have received from others in the neighborhood, because quite often it isn't one house exclusive if it's a true water problem. So just if we could look at the neighborhood, not just your house. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Belanger.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I know that we're receiving this for information, but to expedite things, I'm wondering, given there was inspection by the town and it was deemed that the mechanical system in the house was okay, I was wondering if we could, council could approve that the $250 test at the meter be done at the town's expense.
Again, I go back to, I think we need to have the facts from our staff on this. What has happened? What did the public works staff do when they were there? I think we need to have a full understanding of that before we commit to anything, Councillor. There's others throughout town. So I think, again, setting precedent and things like that, we need to be cautious. Councillor Kinney?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Ron, for your presentation. Not having adequate water, I hear you. One of the things that I was hoping we might be able to do is that ask Kevin to come back with some thoughts sooner than later. I mean, obviously, we're all busy, but that would be helpful, I think, for Ron, if we could get some information back sooner than later. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. I would expect that Kevin will get this back as quick as the last presentation as well. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I've read the motion. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. And again, thank you, Ron, for being here. And Kevin will bring a report back to council, and then we'll make decisions based on that.
And then okay, so yeah, I'll if I have to come back to council, then obviously that might be open if something doesn't get resolved. But I'm hoping it'll get resolved. So I'm being positive. I'm a positive person.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm not paying no $250.
And he comes off. Okay. I think he was done there. Sorry, I think you cut yourself off, Ron. I'm not sure if you're still speaking with us, but your mic is off.
Right. No, I think the issue with what Kevin's, the $250 fee, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure, is the $250 fee is not to do the pressure test. That's all I want is the pressure test. I think what he's saying in his email is the $250 fee is to see if it's reading properly the flow of the water going through the meter. And that wasn't my argument in the first place. It was just basically the pressure going into the meter and coming out of the meter, because if you did it at both ends, you would know that the meter was faulty. Because if the pressure is like 75% coming into the house, but then past the meter it's at 58, then you know you got a faulty meter. That was, just trying to help them out, but I don't think I have to pay $250 for that. I don't think the meter is reading wrong, but it could be, he's called it an old meter, so maybe there's some issues with the pressure of the meter.
Okay, and again, I see, Kevin, you've popped up here. I don't want to get into a debate on this because I want all the facts to come back in one report, but if you have something to add now, we'll take it, but then we're going to move on because I've already called the vote.
Okay.
You're good, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. All right, so that report will come back as soon as possible. So again, thank you for joining us today, Ron.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Our next presentation is Simcoe County Food Council. Ms. O'Neill will be in attendance to provide a presentation to council to raise awareness about the Food Council and its work in implementing the Simcoe County Food Security Framework in hopes to provide more structure for county-wide collaboration and knowledge exchange. So welcome, and I will pass out Councillor Foster.
Sorry, Your Worship, did we actually call the vote on that last one? I know you said you called for a mover and seconder. Did you actually call the vote?
I thought I did. I'll look to the
okay.
I thought
we got interrupted.
Unanimous.
After, so.
Okay. I'm pretty sure. Oh, okay. They're saying maybe I didn't. So I'll call that again on the last one. The council received the presentation from Mr. Ron Fedorowicz pertaining to water pressure concerns for information, and further that it be referred back to staff. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. My apologies to Ms. O'Neill, and we will now pass it over to you to do your presentation.
Thank you for having me. I'm just going to share my screen here. And could I just get a thumbs up if everyone can see that? Wonderful, thank you. So Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Councillors, thank you for having me here today. And I'm excited to introduce you to the Simcoe County Food Council and the Simcoe County Food Security Framework. And before we do that, it's important to recognize the work that's been happening in the county over time. So in 2013, the Simcoe County Food and Agriculture Charter came to be and was endorsed by all municipalities. And from there, there was some cohesive work and collaboration around food security initiatives. And in 2017, there was a ministerial regional roundtable, which then became the local food security forum at the end of 2017. And from there, it was identified that there needed to be some more work to know what was happening in the county. So there was a request for proposal to develop a framework. And then in 2019, that was endorsed by the county. And from the food security framework, there was a recommendation for a food council, and that is how the food council came to be. So the food security framework is a blueprint for furthering awareness, coordination, and development of approaches designed to enhance food security for all residents in Simcoe County. And it's really just a guide for us to base our work on as we start this process. And so the Simcoe County Food Council is really a community-based network fostering collaboration and coordination within the county to enhance food security and also advocate and address and decrease household food insecurity. So we use a constellation model that really builds on the assets that are already within the county and enhances that collaboration. And we do that through dedicated working tables and increasing community capacity and sharing current resources to avoid duplication and working in silos. So our vision is a sustainable, equitable, and secure local food system in Simcoe County that recognizes food as a human right. It is an interconnected food system where safe, sufficient, nutritious, culturally appropriate food is financially and physically accessible to everyone through dignified means, and where the people are actively working towards realizing a more food secure Simcoe County. So within the framework, there's 7 goals that really guide our work. So the first 2 have to do with household food insecurity. So number 1, raising awareness and understanding about household food insecurity in the county. And number 2, supporting income and housing solutions to reduce household food insecurity for households who are underserved or marginalized. Number 3, increase physical access to enough nutritious food for all. Number 4, improve community food literacy. Number 5, improve community food infrastructure and policy to support the local agri-food sector and ensure a sustainable local food system. 6, foster Simcoe County's food traditions and Indigenous food knowledge and culture. And number 7, support county-wide collaboration toward a food secure Simcoe County. So in the first year of our work, so we our inception was in September 2020, so it's been a busy year, and we've established a number of working tables and networks. So the first one that came to be was the food banks of Simcoe County. So when COVID hit, the county initially brought all the food banks together just as a place to provide updates, and we really saw this fitting well within the Food Council. So we actually meet with all the food banks monthly within Simcoe County, and it's an opportunity to provide updates, share best practices, opportunities, and strategies to really work together. Another successful table is the food literacy and food program. So bringing a number of different champions from different municipalities and organizations together to, again, share best practices, but also identify how to move things forward collaboratively. Agriculture and local food systems, and within that is economic development and agri-food business, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and really recognizing that we need to be when we're addressing these issues, we need to ensure that we're also bringing the voice and hearing from those who are oppressed or most marginalized. Community Gardens of Simcoe County. So we've established a network where we meet quarterly with community gardens or champions or coordinators from community gardens within the county, just to avoid that duplication and also identify opportunities. So one of those is an education advocacy campaign that will be coming out next year. We have also joined the Simcoe County Poverty Reduction Task Group to really identify goals 1 and 2, and also, again, not duplicating efforts and working closely with that well-established group. And then lastly, something that we are just in the beginning doing is really looking at the value of having an asset map for the county as a whole, and really having a better ability to measure the assets in our community that have to do with food, and then how to monitor them. And so it's really a multi-layered approach. And within the work, it's important to distinguish two different definitions. So the first one is household food insecurity. And household food insecurity is experienced when an individual or household lacks the financial resources to access food. So that's influenced by cost of living, job security, social assistance rates. And on the other side is community food security. So this has to do more with physical access. So a condition in which all community residents have access to a safe, culturally appropriate, nutritionally adequate diet through sustainable food systems that maximizes community self-reliance and social justice. So although the terms are similar and often are intertwined, they are distinctly different. So within the community food security, that can encompass food skills programs, potentially food banks, farmers markets, agri-food business, and economic development. And household food insecurity really addresses the root cause, which is poverty. And I'd like to spend a minute or two addressing that and just highlighting what are the statistics around household food insecurity. So we know that pre-COVID, 1 in 8 Canadian households were food insecure, and we are hearing now that's closer to 1 in 6 or 1 in 7. And before COVID, that meant 1 in 6 children in Canada live in food secure households. 11.8% of couples with children under 18 were food insecure, and that number doubled if it was a male lone parent, and that number actually tripled for a female lone parent household. And we know that the highest rates of food insecurity are experienced by those who identify as Indigenous or Black, and again, about triple that rate of 11.8%. And provincially, we are seeing the same things as nationally. So if you look at the first diagram on the left, it's just it's showing that 1.7 million identified in 2019, or excuse me, that was from 2016 data, that they were food insecure. And the middle graphic, I think, is really important to look at, that in Ontario, 63% of households that were food insecure relied on wages, salaries, or self-employment. So it really breaks down that myth of what poverty looks like and what household food insecurity is. And then lastly, what are the implications? So this is just one statistic of how showing the impacts of household food insecurity on the province or society as a whole. So individuals experiencing that situation have 121% higher healthcare costs than those who are not household food insecure. So it presents in many different forms, those repercussions. And then at a county level, this is a really great graphic from the health unit, which showed that 1 in 8 households, again, similar to the national level, are experiencing household food insecurity. And if I bring your eyes up to the top right, you'll see just the cost of feeding a family of 4 continues to rise. So from 2014 to 2019, that increase was 18%. But we know that wages did not match that increase, and cost of living in general has gone up. So it's becoming incredibly difficult to feed families. And that's what we're hearing from the food banks table. The biggest increase that they're having at the food banks right now is from families with children. And then this is just another stat to kind of summarize in a little bit more detail. So what does this mean at a municipal level? And there's 2 areas that we're focusing on. So one is assets, and measuring and monitoring community food assets and leveraging existing resources and networks. And this is something that we're talking about at our food council, is a food asset map, and really having a better way of knowing what's happening in the community and keeping that up to date. And then municipal policies that really address household food insecurity and that poverty piece. So annually reviewing the prevalence of household food insecurity and poverty in the area, investing in local infrastructure to help reduce poverty, like affordable housing, affordable transit, and active transportation, and policy and program support for employment, training, and entrepreneurship, and also attracting businesses that pay a living wage. And so today our purpose was just to introduce who we are and foster that network and communication lines, and then ways to consider endorsing the framework include acknowledging household food insecurity as a priority, recognize municipalities have a role to play through planning and economic development, supporting existing food assets, and identifying a point person that we could collaborate with and connect with as we continue this ongoing work. And I'd just like to thank all the individuals who are part of the Simcoe County Food Council, the organizations as well who sit at the council, and the number of individuals that come to the working tables. So thank you to all for listening and having me here today.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And there we go. There's the presentation down. I can see everybody. Is there any questions or comments for Courtney? We'll start with Deputy Mayor Bray.
Thank you, Courtney, very much for the presentation. Very nice to see you again. I know I used to see you at the Healthy Community Network, but we haven't been meeting during COVID. And I think information like this used to come forward from you, and it used to come forward from the health unit. And I think it really is important for us to hear about the importance of a living wage in a community, in all communities, so that not just as counselors at this table that maybe can't impact greatly on local salary levels, that we can continue to support and endorse it at the higher levels that do influence. And I think a great indicator of a living wage was the CERB. When they set that level, they didn't set it at $14 an hour at minimum wage. So I think as a community, as people, we just need to look at not only minimum wage, but certainly poverty and how we can bring the whole community up and out of it, so that food insecurity should not be an issue for 12% or for 2%. It shouldn't be an issue for anybody. I think we should all have that ability to access food to feed ourselves and feed our families. So thank you for bringing this to light.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Your Worship, and again, thank you to Courtney for the presentation. Excuse me. This food insecurity kind of became in my vernacular and previous terms of council when I was involved with the Healthy Community Network, and also on the Community Health Center board. One of the things we have right now, and it's used not only inflation and challenges caused by COVID, but there's also supply chain issues. And you go for not our community per se, but Simcoe County, which does have a large agricultural component. It's hard to imagine that we have, can have challenges putting food on the table. I will remind people that in our own community, food insecurity is often hidden, in that it's not something, if you can tell that your neighbors have food insecurity unless you perhaps get into a deeper conversation. So it is important to have it on the table, and it should be something that we're looking at finding solutions, not judgment on it. So I certainly do look forward to hearing more about this and seeing where we can be involved to help. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Blanchet.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nice to see you again, Courtney. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Nice to see you.
Perfect. A couple of questions that maybe you can bring back to council at a later date, but in meeting with the food banks monthly of the county, I certainly know that Wasaga Beach, the town of Wasaga Beach, makes a contribution to our food bank, but I don't know how it stacks up to best practices across the county, as how involved municipalities are in supporting the food bank, the hours of operation and those kind of things. So that kind of information could be helpful to council to see if there's more that we should be doing or that we're doing well. The other thing, if you recall, when we worked on committee together in the past, there were many logistical challenges related to, I can remember Holland Marsh had, the producers had surplus food, and the challenge was really how do we distribute that safely and effectively. And also, you know, even within many businesses, whether it be restaurants with surplus or retailers with surplus, we certainly hear, you know, in some cases, I'll give the example because they need to be congratulated as Cobb's Bakeries. At the end of every day, they donate all of their product that's left over. But we also hear of organizations that throw a lot out. So I don't know if there's a role we can play to assist the county through economic development and our interaction with these businesses of how we can reduce waste and safely divert and distribute more surplus food to those people that need it, because we certainly know that there's an opportunity there. So if in your work, if that's something that you could bring back to us and let us know how council could assist or the town could assist further, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I don't believe our Economic Development Officer, Caitlin, is on the call, but I know that Doug Heron is. So perhaps he can pass on to Caitlin that we would ask that she reach out to you, and you can maybe share that information with her, and she can share it with the council at a later date. Doug, you'll pass that on, please.
I will do that, Your Mayor, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just not 100% sure. While I recognize the need and applaud your efforts, I'm just trying to understand where the Simcoe County Food Council is set from. It referred numerous times in your presentation to Simcoe County, but I don't believe, or correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe that your organization is a committee or a board or an organization that's directly attached in any way to the county of Simcoe. Is that a correct assumption, Courtney?
That's correct.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yes. So we receive funding through the Community Investment Fund from the county.
Okay. So thank you. That's what my next question was going to be, as to, you know, where does the funding come from to support the Simcoe County Food Council? So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Couple quick questions. On your Food Council members, Courtney, the individuals, is there anyone on that list that's from Wasaga Beach? Are we represented on that council?
No, but I would tell you that I've worked in the Wasaga Beach area for 7 years, so I feel like I bring that lens to every conversation, but no, not someone specific. We did have someone from Collingwood, but again, not Wasaga Beach specific.
Okay, well, there'd be a suggestion that perhaps that would be helpful for our area to be on that. Second of all, your graphic where you showed the cost of food going up to feed a family from 2014 to 2019, the same issues are facing food banks. Our local food bank on December the 17th will be handing out their Christmas hampers, and given the increase this year of families due to job losses, the Christmas hampers are going to cost an extra $5,000. Last 2020, it was about $10,000. It's going up to about $15,000 this year to handle that. So there's definitely a need for more dollars to go towards it. I'm just would like to remind everyone that any money donations to the food bank are eligible for tax receipts. I think that's important for people to know. If they donate, they can get a tax receipt on their donation. So I just suggest that people, if they can, donate to the food banks this upcoming Christmas season for sure, because the need is much greater. COVID is one reason for that, of course. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other cards here. So again, Courtney, thank you very much for being here today, and we'll make sure that Caitlin gets in touch with you.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And moving to the motion, if I can have a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Kinney and Councillor Belanger, the council received a presentation from Ms. Courtney O'Neill pertaining to the Simcoe County Food Council for information. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Moving on to comment and question period. Madam Clerk, did anyone register to speak today?
We have no one registered, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Unfinished business, we have none. Correspondence received for information, none. Correspondence requiring action, none. Correspondence referred, none. Committee, board, and staff reports. We will go to coordinated committee report of October 14th, and we will start with community services and Councillor Kinney, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The following are the highlights of the October 14th, 2021 Community Services section of the Coordinated Committee. Ms. Carol Fraser of the 2nd Wasaga Beach Guides addressed committee and asked for a reprieve of fees the group would pay for use of town space. Due to the COVID restrictions, they are not able to use school board space. The request was referred to staff to review with consideration to be given to other organizations that might require similar assistance. The Ontario Provincial Police representatives addressed committee providing a preliminary overview of the organization's response to the unsanctioned car rally that took place in the community. Officers had 70 vehicles towed for various offenses, including 22 instances of stunt driving and 33 instances involving unfit vehicles. Police removed 4 impaired drivers from the roads and issued 383 charges to motorists. The OPP will be undertaking a full review in the coming weeks, and an update report will be provided to committee. Committee received the Barrie Court Services Area 2021 first and second quarter Provincial Offence Act reports for information. The town will receive a check for $15,912 as its share of revenue from the 2 quarters. This is substantially decreased compared to previous years and is directly a result of COVID-19. The difference in revenue received in 2021 versus the $110,000 budgeted will be made up using provincial COVID-19 support grant. The committee is recommending council approve the annual Remembrance Celebration service for Sunday, November 7th, and further that the Lewis Street be closed to vehicle traffic from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. and further that Glenwood Drive be closed to vehicle traffic between the library and Lewis Street at 10:30 a.m. for the service parade. Committee is also recommending that the Santa Claus Parade take place on Saturday, November 27th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., making its way along Dunkirk Avenue and Moses Street, ending at the Recplex. Committee is also recommending related street closures as outlined in the report to accommodate the parade. In addition, committee is recommending the closure of Dunkirk Municipal Parking Lot to accommodate the formation of the parade. On behalf of the Community Service section of Coordinating Committee, I ask that Council approve the recommendations in this report. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Councillor Kinney's report? Seeing none, we'll move to Public Works. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Your Worship. The following are the highlights from the October 14th, 2021 Public Works section of Coordinated Committee. Committee is recommending that Council award contracts for the provision of fuel, sand, and salt at the prices outlined in the related staff reports. Staff identified these recommended purchases through requests for quotation and tender processes as per the town's purchasing policy. Committee received the Marlwood Avenue and Golf Course Road all-way stop control analysis report for information. Based on the traffic analysis, the report does not recommend an all-way stop at the intersection. Committee received a letter from the Rotary Club about the club's Yellowfish project, which involves volunteers painting the image of a yellowfish on pavement adjacent to catch basins and drains as a reminder to individuals of the harmful effects of dumping products or chemicals. Committee authorized staff to provide traffic control measures to support the project. Committee received the Capital Works project status report for information. The report highlights the status of several projects taking place in the community, including the start of the design work for Beach Area 1 roadways and streetscaping, which will support the redevelopment of town-owned land at the beachfront. Committee received the Water Pollution Control Plant monthly performance report and the Drinking Water System monthly performance report for information. Finally, committee received the monthly transit reports for information. In September 5,026 rides were taken on Wasaga Beach Transit compared to 4,672 rides for the same month a year ago. Just over 7,700 rides were taken on Simcoe County Transit buses traveling from the beach to Barrie and from the beach to Collingwood. On behalf of the Public Works section, the coordinated committee, I ask the council approve the recommendations in this report.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Councillor Watson? Okay, moving on to Development Committee, Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Your Worship. The following are the highlights of the October 14th, 2021 Development Service section of Coordinated Committee. Catherine Steen and Patricia Jaros commenced the meeting with a presentation outlining how the town can be involved in the animated family movie, The Adventures of Tiki the Wonder Dog. The committee received the presentation for information and directed staff to review the material and report back to committee. Committee is recommending that council authorize the staff to start an official plan amendment to streamline the procedure for removing holding zones and authorizing staff to hold a public meeting on these proposed changes. The town places holding zones on development until municipal services are in place. The town can also use those zones to ensure developers meet certain conditions. The intended amendment aims to facilitate faster development times by removing the requirement to advertise for the minimum of 20 days before a public hearing to remove a holding zone through a bylaw amendment. Committee is recommending that council accept a report regarding the removal of holding zones for lands at 801 Sunnydale Road South, and that the hold be removed when Pacific Homes Inc. and 1415069 Ontario Limited register the subdivision agreement and plan, plus related requirements as outlined in the report. The removal of the hold will allow the town to issue building permits for the property, which is part of the Sunnydale Trails development area. Committee is also recommending that an application for a 3-year extension for a draft plan of subdivision for 12 homes located along the west side of Bells Park Road be considered by council for adoption. Committee received for information the building department activity summary for September 2021. For the month, the town issued 81 building permits with a total estimated construction value of $69 million. The town issued building permits for 44 single detached homes during the month and 34 townhouses. As an aside, this continues to be a record-breaking pace for our town. Committee is recommending council award the contract for the creation of the town's comprehensive branding strategy to Scott Thornley and Company Inc. for $59,980 exclusive of HST and subject to approval of the county's economic development funding program. A competitive request for proposals process determines Scott Thornley and Company as the preferred firm to develop the town's new brand. In addition, committee is recommending reallocating $6,536 from the Economic Development Initiatives account to offset the budget shortfall. Committee also recommends awarding the contract to develop the West Wasaga Secondary Plan to WSP Canada Incorporated, partnered with SHS Consulting, as well as Urban Metrics Incorporated, for $160,160, excluding HST. The town used the request for proposals process for the purchasing action. The plan will result in a coordinated and comprehensive approach that addresses future land use, market assessment, transportation, servicing, stormwater and drainage, urban designs, trails and recreation, and natural heritage in the west end of the town, from the roundabout to the town boundary. Committee is recommending that council approve Julia Circle as the road name for the Sky Con Development Condominium Project in the town's east end between Albert and Edward Streets. And finally, committee received for information a memo from Hemson Consulting Limited. This memo is about background work the firm is doing for the County of Simcoe as part of the municipal comprehensive review process. The firm is determining the most appropriate location for long-term growth, plus how much land will be required to accommodate this growth. The memorandum sets out the preliminary results of the land needs assessment, and our staff are engaged in the process and bringing further reports as the review unfolds. On behalf of the Development Services section of the Coordinated Committee, I ask the Council approve the recommendations contained in this report. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Councillor Foster? Okay, moving on to Deputy Mayor Bray for General Government.
I think it's my turn next. The following are the highlights from the October 14th, 2021 General Government section of the Coordinated Committee. Committee is recommending that Council approve the East and West End on-street parking project as part of the 2022 parking capital budget at a cost of $6,000, with funding coming from parking reserves. The project would result in the implementation of paid on-street parking in certain areas at the east and west ends of town that see congestion in the summer months, with people parking on side streets in order to access the beach. On-street parking would be a costlier option for motorists than municipal parking lots, and so the hope is that the new initiative will encourage people to use the lots rather than the side streets. The town will use Honk Mobile as the payment method for people choosing to use the side streets. Committee is recommending that Council approve an exemption to the firearms control bylaw to allow Paul and Marcia Ryther to hold a controlled deer hunt for 5 days in November on their 100-acre farm off Ryther Road, subject to standard yearly conditions outlined in the related staff report. Committee is recommending that Committee of the Whole as Budget Committee consider the conversion of the full-time contract animal control officer position to a permanent full-time position as part of the 2022 budget. The town has had a contract position the last couple of years, and the arrangement has worked well, with the officer also performing the duties of a municipal law enforcement officer. Committee received the Truth and Reconciliation Education and Awareness Report and is recommending option 2, elective self-directed online learning for members of council and staff to learn about Indigenous history, and that a preliminary budget of $4,000 be established through the corporate initiatives budget to fund the implementation of the training. Committee is recommending that Committee of the Whole as Budget Committee consider creating a 2-year, 40-hour per week contract archives coordinator position as part of the 2022 budget. Committee also received for information the County of Simcoe's report on the LDD infestation. Based on the observations in the county report that the gypsy moth caterpillar population is declining, staff recommended that no action be taken by the town in 2022 to address the situation in Wasaga Beach. Finally, committee went into closed session to discuss 2 property matters, a financial agreement pertaining to an arena and library fundraising matter, and the July 29th minutes from an external board. Committee came out of closed session confirming direction provided to the Director of Public Works and the clerk pertaining to 2 property matters, confirming direction provided to the fundraising coordinator pertaining to the financial agreement, and received the minutes from the external board. On behalf of the General Government Services section of Coordinated Committee, I ask that Council receive this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Deputy Mayor Bray's report? Okay, I'll look for a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Foster and Councillor Kinney, that Council receive the Coordinated Committee reports of October 14th, 2021 as circulated and approves all actions contained therein. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Moving on to Committee of the Whole, October 7th. The following are the highlights from the October 7th, 2021 Committee of the Whole budget meeting. Treasurer Jocelyn Lee presented the first draft of the 2022 budget. As things stand today, the total operating budget is $44 million compared to $42 million in 2021. The operating budget covers the day-to-day expenses required to deliver services to residents. The capital budget is $56 million compared to $54 million in 2021. The capital budget supports long-term investments such as infrastructure and facilities. Our largest project for the year ahead is the Twin Pet Arena and Library project, supported through long-term financing, reserves, and fundraising. At this early stage in the budget process, the proposed tax rate increase is 2.15%. For a home assessed at $450,000, this translates to a $56 increase over 2021, or an extra $4.67 each month. Further details on draft 1 are on the town's website under Budget Update 1, and the public can watch the meeting on our YouTube channel. Committee then went into closed session to discuss matters pertaining to labor relations. Committee came out of closed session and received the report from the treasurer related to staffing matters pertaining to the 2022 budget. On behalf of Committee of the Whole, I ask that Council approve the recommendations in this report. Any discussions on this? Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Watson and Deputy Mayor Bray. The Council received the Committee of the Whole Budget Report of October 7th, 2021 as circulated and approves all actions contained therein. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Moving on to Committee of the Whole, October 21st. The following are the highlights from the October 21st, 2021 Committee of the Whole budget meeting. Committee commenced the meeting with a presentation from the NVCA on its 2022 draft budget. The town's proposed 2022 levy contribution is $240,049, an increase of $10,597 over 2021. The capital asset levy is $12,476. This represents a total contribution of $252,525 for 2022. Staff will now review the request and make a recommendation to committee. Committee continued its review of the first draft of the budget with a detailed review of the proposed operating and capital budgets. The treasurer began presentations by providing an overview of the budget process to date. Department heads then presented the highlights of their proposed budgets and fielded questions from members of council. The proposed departmental budgets include significant investments in a number of areas. At this point in the process, the proposed tax rate increase is 2.15%. This wraps up the first draft of the budget. Staff will now start working on the second draft. Matters to be considered include contract staff renewals and new staffing requests, OPP policing cost adjustment, NVCA request for levy increase, contributions to reserves, adjustments to capital project costs. Further details on the meeting are on the town's website under Budget Update number 2. Committee then went into closed session to discuss 2 beachfront leasing matters and a labor relations matter. Committee came out of closed session providing direction to the manager of beachfront properties, fleet and purchasing, and received the report pertaining to the labor relations matter. On behalf of Committee of the Whole, I ask that Council approve the recommendations in this report. Any discussions on this? Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Your Worship. And again, it was mentioned by several of us at that meeting that the draft that's been presented so far is very conservative and very realistic. So at that point we commended staff for the work that they've done, and I do think that this is, we have some more work to go through, but certainly it's a very realistic approach, and I think our taxpayers, if they haven't seen or watched the reports, they should, because it's well done. And so I look forward to seeing the second draft shortly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a mover and seconder for this motion, please? Councillor Foster and Councillor Kinney. The Council received the Committee of the Whole budget report of October 21st, 2021 as circulated and approves all actions contained therein. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Accounts September 1st to 30th. Those will be brought forward at the November Committee of the Whole and Council meeting. 8.5 Executive Assistant to the CAO, Mayor and Council's report on proclamations and flag raisings. If I can have a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Kinney, Councillor Watson. The Council received the information report pertaining to proclamations and flag raisings for the month of October 2021 for information. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Recreation and Youth Coordinators report, youth engagement proposal for youth bus pass program. If I can have a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Kinney, Councillor Belanger. The Council approve a free youth bus pass program for the month of November and December to facilitate youth engagement in community activities addressing a key strategic direction from the Wasaga Beach Youth Strategy. Any discussion on this item? Councillor Belanger.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just would like to request, if possible, not to make a great big make-work project, but if we could somehow be able to record the number of people that receive the free pass and then the utilization of the pass. Like, I don't know if there's any way to identify it as they make a trip, but it would be very positive if we could get some feedback on how well it's used. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we'll ask staff to see what they can do on that. Councillor Kinney, did I see your card up?
Yes, Your Worship, and I think it's a good initiative brought forth by our youth coordinator. We'll get, hopefully, as reading the report, more of our young people used to using mass transit and probably reducing greenhouse gases from that. And finally, I agree with Councillor Blanchet. It would be a nice thing if staff can do it, just so that we know what the uptake is and the positive rate. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. If there's nothing further, I've already read the motion. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. I will go to Mr. CAO for the COVID verbal update.
Thank you, Worship. Good afternoon, members of council. So this afternoon, I'm joined by our communications officer, Mike Jennings, and our deputy chief, Craig Williams. Once again, Mr. Jennings will be providing an overview of what's new from the province dealing with COVID, and our deputy chief will be highlighting some recent news from the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit, and then I'll follow with the command team update. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Through you, Your Worship. Lots of small announcements continue from the province, but the big one that I wanted to share with members of council came out Friday, and that was when the government announced its plan to safely reopen Ontario and manage COVID-19 for the long term. And this outlines the province's gradual approach to lifting the remaining public health and workplace safety measures by March of 2022. And we saw the first part of this come into effect on the 25th, on Monday, when Ontario lifted capacity limits, including physical distancing requirements in the vast majority of settings where proof of vaccination is required. So places such as restaurants, bars, and other food and drink establishments. And if all continues to go well, there's a series of dates that will roll out between now and March, where we'll see restrictions further loosen. The big one to keep in mind is March the 28th, which is when the remaining public health and workplace safety measures will be lifted, including wearing face coverings and indoor public settings. So a while to go until we get to March 28th, but that's kind of the spot that we want to strive to reach between now and over the course of the winter. And that concludes my provincial update for you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Jennings? Okay, we'll move to Deputy Fire Chief Williams, please.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, members of council. Provincially, there have now been 598,000 cases of COVID-19, including 585,000 recoveries and 9,846 deaths. There are currently 109 individuals who are COVID positive admitted to ICUs across the province, and that includes 71 individuals on ventilators. Of the ICU admissions, 83% of the COVID positive patients are either unvaccinated or partially vaccinated. The provincial testing positivity rate is currently 1.6%, and to date, Ontario has conducted 18.7 million COVID-19 tests. Provincially, 88% of those over 12 years old have received a single dose of vaccine, while 84% are now fully immunized. More regionally, within Simcoe Muskoka, the total number of reported cases by the health unit is 13,915, with 13,484 recoveries and 263 deaths. There were 118 new cases reported from the health unit last week, and that is 6% higher than the cases that were reported for the week of October the 10th. There are currently 8 individuals hospitalized in Simcoe Muskoka, and the 7-day moving average of cases is currently 17.2 cases per day. The percent positivity rate for Simcoe Muskoka is 1.5%, and there are now 4 active outbreaks in the region, including 3 educational settings and 1 institutional setting. 86% of our regional population over 12 years old is immunized with 1 dose of vaccine, while 82% is fully immunized. And finally, locally within Wasaga Beach, we've had a total of 314 cases. And that number currently includes no residents admitted to the hospital, 3 that are isolating within the community, 5 deaths, and 306 recoveries. 5 of our cases were listed during the last 14 days, with the most recent occurring on October the 17th. And our vaccine percentages are 88% above 12 years old with 1 dose and 83% fully immunized. And just finally, I did want to send our thanks to the South Georgian Bay Community Health Center. They have generously offered to provide 2 influenza vaccine clinics for Wasaga Beach employees and council members. Those clinics will be occurring this Friday and then again on Monday. And I just wanted to acknowledge them and that we do appreciate their ongoing partnership that we have built over the last year and a half with them. And this concludes my update.
Thanks, Deputy. Any questions for Craig? Okay, thank you. We'll move back to Mr. CAO.
Thank you, Worship. So the command team met earlier today to review the provincial announcement made on Friday and the impacts on Wasaga Beach. As was indicated, the lifting of restrictions took effect on Monday, so we reviewed the capacity limits in all our facilities. And new capacity limits are being put in place for the arena ice surface, the arena hall, the arena change rooms, the active living center, the youth center, the Recplex small meeting room, the Recplex Oakview meeting room, and Recplex Hall A and B. So those are all going to be in effect as of tomorrow. I'd like to provide council with an update on the vaccination status of members of council and staff. As of this morning, 100% of council is double vaccinated. 88% or 156 or 88% of 156 active staff are double vaccinated or have 1 dose. 12% or 15 staff are not vaccinated or did not declare their status. These individuals are now expected to follow heightened workplace safety protocols. These results are similar to the current community and provincial response levels. The clerk is working on requirements to return to in-person council meetings while ensuring proper safety protocols are followed. The health unit will be publishing guidelines later this week or early next week for municipalities looking to return to in-person meetings. Your Worship, that concludes my comments, and I'd be happy to take any questions members of council may have.
Thanks, George. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Your Worship. Maybe George can take this back to the command team. But when we talk about going back to in-person meetings, which is a great thing, one of the things I think we have to have learned from COVID is for not to show up when you're sick, whether it be COVID or a flu or any other issue. So I'm wondering if there is any thought to keeping a hybrid model available for council and staff specifically to attend, to have a hybrid that was electronic and in person going forward for the rest of the term. I don't know whether that's something that might be worth considering. Thank you.
And I'm sure the clerk is looking at all options. Dina, did you want to speak to that now, or yeah?
Thank you, Your Worship. I can give a little bit of an update. If that is something we would need to consider, especially for the public as well as members of council. Some of them may still want to participate electronically, and that is particularly fine. So what we're looking at is bringing in an audio specialist, because we do have some challenges in the council chambers that we need to work on. So that is happening next week. We've scheduled them to come in, and then we will look at what the cost is to kind of get our chambers really up and running so that we can seamlessly run a hybrid meeting. So that's what we're working on now. And then once we have that all sorted out, then I'll be bringing a report back to council with an approach to get us back into the chambers.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to give a little shout out to our Fire Chief, Mike McWilliam, and our Deputy Chief, Craig Williams, who is on the call today, for their continued proactive approach to COVID and getting out and spreading the word in our community. Last night, the two of them attended Rotary's first in-person meeting in a year and a half. We had I think 10 or 11 members that went to the Recplex for that meeting, and Mike and Craig gave a little talk to the troops to update them on the history of COVID in the municipality, how well we have done, and what to look forward to in the next few months. So thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, if I can have a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Kinney and Councillor Foster, that council received the October 21st, 2021 verbal COVID-19 update from the CAO for information. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Moving on to community announcements. Today we will start with Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, a relatively quiet month for me, but I did attend the the musical presentation that was done at Grandma's Beach Treats just a couple of weeks ago for support of the food bank. The music was exceptional, and it was a very enjoyable time to just sit and listen. I attended the mayor's get together with the Chamber of Commerce. And again, a very interesting evening as various mayors from around the area discussed how they had dealt with COVID over the several months. I have to admit that some of the mayors explained it in such a way that they took up a significant amount of time. I'll say that politely. However, it was interesting to hear what had been done in various municipalities. And attended a community policing meeting last week as the council's representative, and that's my report.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I participated in the annual General and Marine Hospital golf fundraiser. Through the generous donations of many golfers, approximately $70,000 was raised to support the hospital in purchasing new patient beds. Attended the Municipal Comprehensive Review Zoom meeting put on by the county to forecast growth in Simcoe County and for the various municipalities within the county. Wasaga Beach is very well positioned to handle the growth projected due to the capability of both our water and sewage systems to accommodate that growth. Attended the second annual World Summit that was organized by Mr. Larry Law of Collingwood. Political leaders, captains of industry, and citizens from around the world attended via Zoom to discuss issues that are critical to climate, health, and government. Attended 2 NVCA Conservation Board meetings and continued to work with residents to assist in obtaining building permits. Town had their fall Adopt a Road on October 16th and provided the bags for volunteers to clean up the streets. And Public Works was there to pick up the many garbage bags accumulated. Our Youth Center Grill team set up a barbecue for the volunteers at the Recplex, and it was well received, even though the weather was very rainy and cold and they didn't have a big turnout. I'd like to thank Angela Webster from Special Events for organizing that little barbecue on short notice, and hopefully next year maybe we can revive the community volunteer barbecue for Adopt a Roads that we used to have many years ago. Attended a flag raising and proclamation for National Disability Employment Month. Attended the Mayor's Salute and Chamber of Commerce Mix and Mingle event for Small Business Week, as Councillor Wells had mentioned earlier. The mayors and chamber leaders from the region spoke about how their municipality is managing the pandemic, initiatives they employ to support local businesses, as well as their vision for the future. And I believe there were 7 cities, the city of Aurelia, and towns that participated, and it was a well-attended event. And just yesterday attended the Oakview Wood Skateboard Park to celebrate the artists that created beautiful murals to enhance the park. These murals feature the creativity and talent of our local artists and brighten up the skateboard park. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Kinney.
Thank you, Your Worship. And it was also a quiet month for myself. However, I met with our Accessibility Advisory Committee, which are working on a lot of good initiatives, including a flag access initiative. I too attended the flag raising for the National Disability in Employment Awareness Month, which is extremely important. And like most of council that could, attended the celebration of artists at our youth skate park. And your worship, that would be my month. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Belanger.
Thank you, Your Worship. This month, as normal, I followed up a number of resident concerns, participated in the Simcoe County Municipal Comprehensive Public Information Session, participated in the session's food bank check presentation, and the flag raising for National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And soon our Impact with Wasaga Beach Club will be launching our second annual Shine Your Light fundraiser to raise money for the food bank this Christmas, and also to buy toys for the Connect Toy Drive. Thank you. Oh, I did miss the skate park because I did participate in my mom's 93rd birthday party yesterday. So that was pretty exciting. Thank you.
Hey, Councillor Foster.
I'll start off by saying happy birthday to Councillor Belanger's mom. Good for her. Again, as the rest of us, dealing with some concerns from people within the community on different issues. I also have had some family items that have drawn me out of town for the first time in years, or a few years. And I will mention, Your Worship, I got on a plane. I'm actually coming into you from Kelowna, British Columbia today. And so for those who have not taken a flight yet, it's a really interesting experience. It's not terrifying. But again, I felt somewhat comfort knowing that, most of the people that we're going to be dealing with will be double vaccinated, and it makes it just a little more comforting to travel. I do have some interesting ideas from this. This is a tourist town I'm in right now, and they've got some interesting ideas I want to bring back, like the solar powered trash compactors on the street. It's unique, and their bicycle racks are amazing. So I'll discuss that at the meeting further on. Thank you, Your Worship. Oh, and by the way, if I'm still on here, reminder, Halloween is coming up, and there will be people trick-or-treating, I believe, this year. So be careful on the streets. Thank you.
Thank you. I thought that room you were in looked different. I haven't seen that one before. Deputy Mayor Bray.
Thank you. As well as speaking to a number of residents and following up with their concerns, I have the unique privilege of running a business in town and getting to speak with a lot of visitors to town. So one of the questions when people are there is often, where are you from? What brings you to Wasaga Beach? And I'm constantly amazed at the number of new residents that I'm speaking to. So definitely evidence that our town is growing, and people are getting out and about and shopping locally. And welcome to all that are new. Like a number of fellow councillors, I was at the mural unveiling yesterday. I drive by it a couple of times a day, every day, and I think it adds a real splash of color to that part of our town. And I congratulate events and the youth coordinator for that initiative. I know there's another mural that has we have seen. I guess it hasn't been officially unveiled over at the Archives building, and there's one coming to the youth center. So I think it's a great initiative. I love to see art exploding around our town. Attended a number of events that have already been mentioned. In addition, County Council and Coordinated Committee for County Council. I sit on the Audit and Finance Committee at County Council, and we met this month. After last month's council meeting, we were invited to the fire hall for a demonstration of the aerial truck, which we have since gone on to purchase. So that was kind of a highlight of the month, was going up 110 feet and getting the bird's eye view of our beautiful town. So happy Halloween and stay safe, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. And for myself, the regular meetings, arena and library construction meetings, the chamber annual mayor's salute, county council meetings, command team, as well as many of the events that have been mentioned. On a sad note, I do want to mention that Star Scott, the town's recreation coordinator for a number of years, did pass away last week. So please keep her family in your thoughts. Star contributed a lot to our community and made the lives of our youth much better. So thank you to Star, and we'll definitely be keeping everyone in her family in our thoughts. Deputy Mayor Bray.
So sorry, I forgot to two things. Hootenanny for anyone who managed to attend. It was much smaller, but it was still just as much fun. So thank you to the events department. And most important, the Age Friendly Committee nominated our Senior of the Year, Mr. Bill Hooper. Many would know as a very active long-term food bank volunteer. And the mayor and I, and along with Fiona and some representatives from the food bank, were able to swing by his house yesterday and present a certificate and offer our congratulations. So Senior of the Year, Mr. Bill Hooper, congratulations.
Thank you. Moving on, notices of motion. I don't believe we have any motions where notice has been previously given. None. Calling of committee meetings, Mr. CIO.
Yes, Your Worship. November, we have a series of meetings. We're picking up again with the budget. So our first committee of the whole budget meeting is Wednesday, November 10th. And then we have a coordinated committee on Thursday, November 18th. And then we have council on Tuesday, and I'm looking at my calendar here, November 22nd. So those are your scheduled meetings for this coming month. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to bylaws, if I could have a mover and seconder, please. Oh, Councillor Belanger.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to the CAO, through Your Worship, is the council at 2 on the 22nd, and are the other 2 at 9 o'clock again?
Mr. CIO or Dina, I see your card up.
Just to clarify, it's actually the 23rd, Tuesday the 23rd, and it is at 2 p.m.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Kinney, I saw your card up.
Thank you, Your Worship, and to Dina and to George. Our committee, our committee of the whole budget, is that not at 7 p.m. at night?
That's correct. It is at 7 p.m. So the meeting on the 10th of November is a 7 p.m. Meeting, and the council meeting has been indicated as at 2 p.m.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to bylaws, mover and seconder, please. Councillor Kinney and Councillor Foster resolve that the following bylaws be received and be deemed to be read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered as follows. 2021-85, a bylaw to establish a cash in lieu of parking policy in the town of Wasaga Beach. 2021-86, a bylaw to authorize the construction of water servicing on certain streets and to authorize financing of the costs of the said capital works. And 2021-87, a bylaw to amend the town of Wasaga Beach comprehensive zoning bylaw number 2003-60 as amended, Adam Wiener, 34 Constance Boulevard. Any discussion? Councillor Belanger.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I had opposed 2021-85 cash in lieu of parking policy, as I didn't believe it was potentially in the best interest of our taxpayers. So if that could be voted on separately, thank you.
Sure. So we will vote on 2021-85 first. Madam Clerk, I don't think I have to reread everything, or do I?
No, that's correct, Your Worship. I think Councillor Belanger is, oh, there he's back. Accidentally turned off his video, but yes, you can just go ahead.
Okay, so we'll vote on 2021-85. All those in favor? And those opposed? And that carries by a vote of 6-1 with Councillor Belanger in opposition. And then we will move to 2021-86 and 2021-87. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Moving on to closed session. Is there any need to go into closed session? All that we have there is minutes from past meetings. Okay, I'm seeing those. So we will move on to the motion of 15.1. If I can have a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Kinney and Councillor Wells. Resolve that council receive the following closed session reports as circulated and approves all actions contained therein. Regular meeting of council, September 28th, 2021, closed session minutes. Coordinated committee, October 14th, 2021, closed session minutes. Committee of the whole budget, October 21st, 2021, closed session minutes. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. And confirmatory bylaw, if I could have a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Kinney and Councillor Watson resolve that a bylaw to meetings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Wasaga Beach at its regular meeting held Tuesday, October 26, 2021, be received and be deemed to be read a first, second, and third time, passed in number 2021-88. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. We are now adjourned. Have a great afternoon.